you join me today at the wheel of a car that shouldn't be on these shores. Yes, I'm driving a JDM, Japanese domestic market only Nissan Stagea. Basically, it's a Skyline estate. This is kind of the best of every world. It's fast, it's huge, it's fun. It's a little thirsty, but let's go and have a look at the review. And if you like cars like this, then please do hit like and subscribe. And let's get on with the review now. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and this, like it says on the sticker in the window, is not a Volvo. This is a Nissan Stagea, or Stagea, depending on how you've heard it spoken before. This is a car which is known colloquially as the Skyline estate, the supercar station wagon, the long roof Ferrari killer. Well, maybe not that one, but certainly it's a very interesting car which isn't a Volvo, but does have certain Volvo-ish characteristics, but also has rather a large number of Skyline-ish characteristics too. Let's take a walk around and have a look. Now, the generation or Series 1 cars ran from 1996 till 2001. In terms of looks, they had a lot in common with the R34 Skyline, but under the skin, they're very much more R33. So straight six engine, four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive on the base models, facelifted halfway through, and then replaced in 2001 by this, the second generation, which was known by many people as the new wave or new generation of Skyline, because it is a very different animal entirely. When the V35 platform came out, underpinning the 11th generation Skyline, it was aimed more at a luxury sports car rather than all-out supercar slayer as it had been before. For the first time, it wasn't a straight six engine, it wasn't a turbo, and there was no GTR in the lineup. In fact, it wasn't even going to be called a Skyline, but Carlos Ghosn decreed that as head of Nissan Renault, it was going to be the new Skyline. So this is effectively a Skyline estate. It also underpins the Nissan 350Z, so you could also call it a Nissan 350Z estate if you really wanted to go down that route. However, we're not going to. We're going to stick with the Skyline aspect. But let's talk about the styling for a minute. Down the side of it, it does share a lot of characteristics of, say, a Volvo V70. The bluff front end, the strong shoulder line and big swage line, although it's a little bit more sculpted the way it just drifts in to a blend here at the back. This roofline is also very Volvo-esque, and you head around the back, these tall tail lights with coming into an L are also quite Volvo-inspired, I might say. Now, everything's been done to this car was done in Japan. It only recently arrived on these shores and was put through the MOT to make it road legal over here. So things like the wheels are standard as they arrived. Got the big brake discs in there. The owner in Japan did put the lower support suspension on there, so it does ride a little bit firmer and look a little bit better as well. Coming around the front though, we've got a few interesting touches. First of all, this bumper looks like an aftermarket thing, but it's not. This is completely standard with the air ducts in the lower part of the bumper. And up above we've got these twin deck headlights which bulge out on the ends for the indicator and side lights. Moving around the front, we don't even have a badge on the grille, which leads to a lot of car park confusion when people try and work out what they're looking at if they're not used to Japanese market cars. And everything is just so clean and so smooth and simple. It's very aero, very minimalistic on the outside of the car. There's virtually no adornment anywhere, just a large flat panel with these simple creases up the sides of the bonnet. It's an elegant yet brutal looking thing. Now, heading around the back of the car, the fairly simple but brutal styling continues. The car was originally conceived back in the 90s as a Subaru legacy rival, but by this point it now bears a lot of resemblance to a Honda Accord estate with this very, very practical square-cornered rear end. As I say, these tail lights do kind of resemble a bit of a Volvo kind of look, but without the strong shoulder as it's blended in down here already. On the back, of course, we've got the name Stagea. I still don't know what to call it. This model is a 350RX, which is pretty much top of the range, 3.5 litre, lots of fun stuff, but only an RX, not an RX4, meaning it's rear-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive. Looking down here, we have a clue to the performance from this thing with a big twin exhaust, and also because this is a JDM import, the owner has had to install an aftermarket fog light to make it be road legal here in the UK. Now, the boot is rather fun. It's a two-stage thing like on a Range Rover or a BMW 3 or 5 Series. We do have a two-piece tailgate, so you can load stuff through here. This top opening panel is actually quite heavily L-shaped, like the top of an Alfa 145 boot. So you do have very good insert access just there. And if you want the full thing, the quite heavy boot lid opens up easily. It's not that tall. Well, it does go a long way, but there's such a lot of padding and stuff here in this section. It's quite easy to walk into it. Lucky I've got my hat on today. Now, the boot is full of surprises, as well as the retractable load space cover, We have what looks like big door handles here on the side, which ping the back seats forward if you want to do that. We've also got small areas for hiding stuff here on the left and on the right. Luggage lash down points on both sides as well and over in the floor. Concealed in the corners, we have little tufts that let you open up these small areas here. And this one contains the history pack from the car. You'll notice it says Nissan Red Stage on the side of it. That's because these cars were only available from Nissan Red Stage dealers. And there is a lot of history and information with this car. All of it, of course, in Japanese. So, there is a New Zealand Australia operator's manual here, so I guess they were anticipating JDM cars winding up in that market fairly soon on, thanks to their tax laws. So that can live down in that little cubby hole there. Likewise, there is another matching little cubby here on the right hand side, and pull a little tag here and up comes the main section of the boot, complete with a binder which reveals that this car has been rolling roaded and still gets 273 horsepower. And there's even one final concealed floor panel which has got all the toolkit stuff hidden inside there, and RCA input, so you can connect a PlayStation or a other console into the car and use the screen in the front to play games on or watch TV or videos. This car has everything. Oh, finally, as well as these hooks here, we have little additional pop-out hooks so you can carry even more stuff. I think you can actually latch things between these two in the centre. Look a little fragile, I'm not quite sure what that would be for. Now here under the bonnet you'll find one of two VQ V6s, a 2.5 or a 3.5 litre respectively, giving 212 or 268 horsepower. The fact this one's still giving 273 is rather positive. The way you tell what you're looking at, because they're virtually the same on the outside, is the badge 250 or 350. It was also available as a two-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive. Again, the only difference externally is the word 4 underneath that number badge over on the boot lid. Transmission was all 5-speed automatic on everything apart from the astonishingly rare Autech tuned version, which was like a dealer upgrade through a tuning house, and that came with a 6-speed manual, but that is astonishingly rare. I think around 100 units were built, so chances of finding one are very slim. In fact, the chances of finding really any of these isn't that great. They are not a common car by any means, certainly not in Japan, absolutely not here in the UK. This was brought in by a specialist importer though, so they know what to look for. Right, so let's take a look around the interior of this thing, and if you like gadgets and weird stuff, it is, well, happy fun times. We're in for a treat and a half. Starting with the door, because this is very much a luxury sports car rather than an out-and-out performance thing, it is leather clad. Got perforated leather in the door, nice solid metal door handles, and these, as I've mentioned them before, Japanese love them, clunky clicky door switches for the locks. Down below that we've got a nice leather padded armrest door pull with a metal panel inside that there, and a pull-out expandable door pocket so you can have more stuff in there and access to stuff at the bottom. That is all in between, sandwiched in between. Big speaker at the bottom, little tweeter at the top, and the previous owner added some little Alpine extra tweeters in there, so I'm imagining there's some better speakers inside there as well. We have got electric windows all round, but only one touch on the driver's door, and we have central locking here as well as up here, and rear window lockout if you want to be mean to your rear passengers. Now before we climb into the interior, we have got the nameplate down on the doorstep so we can see what we're climbing into. We have original Nissan floor mats with a little taggy thing, and down here we've got the push on push off foot pedal parking brake. Below the steering column there's more stuff, traction control off, and an ionizer, clean air ionisation in the cabin filters, which is pretty much unheard of in any other car I've come across. It's very much a popular Japanese home market thing rather than one for the export cars. And this is the fog light switch, that little light under the bumper. Now this, I'm assuming, is when it was last serviced over in Japan. No, I don't read any of that. Now moving up, we have got an illuminated ring around the ignition key, very swank. And look at the shape of this dashboard, this double curve going into the length and the width of the dashboard. So we have an upper T-shelf area and a lower curved non-T-shelf area, although I have to say this is not great T-shelfery. It's quite hard to balance anything on here because the curves and the angles really are far too steep for any of that kind of thing. Now I'm going to have to turn the ignition on because we can't see much without it. Ah, good with beeping because Japanese car. And we're alive. Lots of lights and stuff on the dashboard. Many things beep at you when you turn this car on. That will talk to us in a minute to tell us we haven't got our SIM card in. This is like a... Here we go. This is like a toll road thing made by Panasonic, and there's no card in it, so it tells you that every time you get in the car. Quite fun. Up top, we have got a big screen to tell us the time and to tell us the temperature. It's a dual zone climate, but interestingly, rather than having dual controls, there's only one control for the dual zone climate, which is down here. And in order to do that, you hit the dual button, and that sets it to whatever the driver wants you both get. Push it again, and it's the passenger's use. And push again, driver only. So yeah, just cycles through all the options. Other screens we have got are the dashboard binnacle. We've just got the 4 regular dials. The outer circles, the temperature and the fuel. The inner circles, the bigger ones. The rev counter going up to 8,000 RPM, redlining just under 7,000, and the speedo going up to 180, except that's kilometers per hour. There is no MPH readout in this car. It's all KMH, so you have to do lots of quick maths. And in the center of that, we have a little readout telling us what gear we're in. Moving back to the steering wheel, chunky and leather executive car feeling rather than sports car feeling, with this kind of dark browny beige leather and satin gold insert parts, which have got controls for the volume, and telephone, and the horn, of course. Horn test. Extra parpy. We like the parp of that. Then we have the stalks around the back. These are big chunky turret stalks, and they are rotatable and clickable upable, but important note, Japanese JDM car, so wipers are on the left, indicators and lights are on the right. I cannot tell you how many times I've got that wrong on the short drive over here so far. A bit of interesting weirdness. The air vents don't just have little slats in them that go up and down. The entire vent unit rolls up and down. Would you look at that? And that goes for all 4 of them across the dashboard. What do you reckon to that? That's very 1990s craziness hitting into this car in 2001. Now we do have a large panel of switches and things, which fortunately Google Translate can shine a camera at and tell you what on earth you are looking at, because otherwise you're going to be kind of lost with all of these things. Only Car Wings makes any sense, except Car Wings doesn't make any sense unless you know what it actually is. This is mostly for the infotainment system, which you hit this button here and hurrah, up it comes. That's your sat nav. Your car, it currently thinks we're in the South Pacific. It seems a little confused, even though it has got GPS. It doesn't really get the measure of where we are. Lots of interesting menus to cycle through. So yes, we can go through all the menus, which are super useful. Yeah, so the owner spent a lot of time trying to work out what these do. It's not massively useful at the moment because the GPS obviously thinks we're in the sea near Japan, and the TV tuner only works on Japanese frequencies. Likewise, the radio down here does work on FM, but Japanese FM frequencies end in the low 90s and go down into the low 70s. So we can only get a few stations. I think like radio 2 and 3 are probably in there, and a few local stations, not a lot else. This is a little like the drop-down aluminium panel you find in an Alpha 159 a couple of years later. But one thing you didn't find in an Alpha 159 is a Minidisc Player. OMG. The owner has actually been out and found himself a bunch of mini discs so he can actually have some music going on. He's even had to go and buy a mini disc recorder for his house so he can transfer music over to it. Yes. So there are ways around doing these things. You're never completely stuck. Underneath that we have got ashtray and cigarette lighter. Now, Japanese cars do tend to be smoked in quite a lot, but it doesn't look particularly dirty. It doesn't smell like smoke either, so I don't know, maybe they've done an amazing cleanup at the importers. Automatic gearbox, as I've said, we've got shift lock, and we can bunch it sideways for manual sort of override. And we've got heated seats, bum warmers, left and right 2-stage. Underneath here we have got cup holders, so there is a small amount of tea shelfery in the middle. And behind that, big comfy armrest, which has got space for all of your Minidisc needs, coins, other tiny things, oddments, and I can actually feel the breeze coming through here. It's air conditioned, so it's a chilled mini box. So if you want to picnic in here, you can keep your sushi cool until lunchtime. If you're doing a delivery run in this car, you get the food there fast and cold. And finally, on the passenger side of the dashboard, we have a double glove box area. The first one's big curved front opens up, and that leaves room for the DVD navigation device. So the DVD player is unfortunately only for that, not for anything else. Underneath which we have got a regular flock-lined glove box with yet more Japanese language instructions in there. And finally in the front we have got our flare. Japanese cars do have to carry a flare for emergency purposes. This still has it, thankfully. It wasn't stolen or lost on the ship over. Now let's have a look at these seats. They are big, comfy armchairs, considering this is basically the spiritual successor to the Skyline. These are big, massive, comfy armchairs with multi-way electric adjustment. So something has been lost in translation from the original Skyline brief. The driver's one even has 2 extra buttons for additional tilt and lumbar. So you can go all over the place with this one. And up above we have got a sunglasses holder, but only one interior light. Let's have a quick look in the back because there's more goodness back there. Now looking in the back, the door cards are remarkably similar. We have got the same perforated leather armrests, metal inserts, the two-tone pattern with the darker brown over the light beige, metal door handles, big speakers, all the rest of it. But then we have these seats which carry on from the front of the car with a big comfy leather armchair, but these actually recline. This one's set rather forward. Pull the lever, and you can have comfy snoozy time here in the back of the car. It's a 60/40 fold, as you can see, and it has a nice padded armrest in the middle. Rear seat passengers also get a bit of air ventery and ashtray-ery, as well as mesh pocketery. And that is the rear of the car. Let's have a quick climb in and see. Easy to get in, big doors. Lots of headroom, especially with the seat reclined. This is, oh, very relaxing. I could fall asleep right now. I'm filming this about 2 days after the NEC, and I'm still quite tired. I could actually just fall asleep for a while right now. Oh, the beeping. Japanese and American cars do kind of treat you like an idiot, so they beep at you more or less non-stop when the key is in ignition and the door is open. Oh, dear me. Right, let's get this thing on the road. And the magic happens. Parking brake off. Talkie lady? No. Talkie lady in a minute. Let's go. Thank you, card lady. Now, of course, being an automatic, it is very, very simple to drive. Just point it where you want to go, squirt the throttle. Now, it's 273 horsepower on tap. Pulling away is not a problem. Fortunately, it's dry today and it's not having any difficulty putting the power down. You do get that lovely kind of V6 burble from the front. It's not the same as the old, I remember that time, it's not the same as the old straight 6 scream, which is really something quite impressive. Oh, nice chimney. Oh, I've done it wrong that time. Penny in the indicator jar. It is more heavy on the luxury than the sport, but it is still massively rapid and feels like it wants to fly away. And that sport suspension that's been added really does tighten the ride up a lot. So you can feel how taut the thing is, how well composed. It is actually quite a harsh ride, surprisingly harsh. Oh, a Rover P4. Oh, good car spotting today. And the steering is incredibly light, far lighter than I thought it would be. This car is something that does really need a bit of speed behind it because it's a massively rapid vehicle. The little lanes won't quite do it justice today, so let's hit the dual carriageway and get a little bit more speed going. Wow, that does sound good, doesn't it? That's only about 60 miles an hour, just over 60 now. You can feel the length of the car because it just crests the bumps in the road. The suspension is incredibly firm, and that does add a little bit of jitter and judder to the ride, but it's not really uncomfortable. And the next interesting car spot, a Peugeot 1007 with sliding doors. Who knew? Now, as I say, this car was never sold outside of Japan, so this was a personal import which the current owner has just done literally a few days ago. It arrived and is now road legal in the UK. The V35 platform was actually the first Skyline ever to be available in the USA. However, they didn't sell this version of it over there. Going around this long, or was until now, fast corner, it is amazing how little a thing leans. Lots of G-force dragging me over to the side, but the car itself is still as stable as anything. Now, something that's quite hard to find for this car is actual performance data. I've been searching for a couple of days to find anything on the internet to figure out how fast this car is, and even the owner doesn't know for sure. He thinks it's around 6 or 7 seconds to 60, and the previous generation, the top end of the previous RB engined version, would do up to 155 miles an hour. I don't think this one is that fast anymore, but 0 to 60 is still knocking on the door of 6.5 seconds. It really is interesting driving a car like this because there's nothing else like it on the road, and you feel just a little bit special and a little bit undercover as well, because people who aren't into cars will not give it a second look. They'll just think probably some kind of big Volvo or Honda or something. But people who know cars will just instantly be grabbed by the fact that they are looking at a Skyline estate, and one of very few in the UK. The owner had wanted one of these for a while, and it took him a long time to track down the perfect one. It takes a special kind of determination to bring in a car like this. The patience and the money required is quite a lot, really, because it takes months of planning. Even if you're going through an importer doing absolutely everything for you, the time it takes when the car is sitting in the port at the other end, when it's on the ship, spending all those weeks at sea, it's just a never-ending just waiting game. So you have to be really determined to want to get the car. It's not in any way like just rocking up to your local dealership and driving away with something. Now, once you get onto a gentle cruise on the dual carriageway, it's very quiet and relaxing. And despite having so much power under your right toe, it is still quite docile when you're at low speeds. The automatic gearbox just tickles through. The steering is, like I said earlier, incredibly light, so you just poodle around, relax into it. This is where the luxury part has really taken over from the sport part. And despite its size, it's 2006 big, not present day big. So it doesn't shock you and surprise you with the unfortunate not being able to squeeze through gaps. It's very easy to place on the road because it's so square. You can work out exactly where you are when you're manoeuvring it as well. And visibility is good too. The roofline is just high enough to be not feeling at all claustrophobic or penned in. This A-post does come up to you quite hard though, quite steeply raked. And the problem with this kind of car is that the noise it makes and that little surge of acceleration with just a dab of the throttle does mean you always want to be just tickling the accelerator maybe a touch more than you probably should. So thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed looking around this, well, unique in this country, Nissan wagon. If you have, please do hit like and subscribe, and join me again next time driving something completely different.